My name is Father Anthony Delgado. I'm 36 years old and I've been serving at St. Raphael's Church for 9 years, a beautiful stone cathedral in the heart of Boston. My life is predictable, structured, safe. Mass at 7 in the morning, confessions on Wednesdays and Saturdays, hospital visits on Thursdays, homily preparation every evening. I like routine. I like knowing exactly what to expect each day. After a chaotic youth filled with bad decisions and destructive relationships, the church offered me order, purpose, peace. I entered seminary at 25, escaping a past I'd prefer to forget. A toxic relationship that nearly destroyed me. Addictions that almost consumed me. The death of my father, who never understood my struggles. Faith saved me when I had nothing left. The first years were difficult. Celibacy, obedience, discipline. But with time, they became natural. I stopped looking at women with desire. I stopped feeling that emptiness I used to fill with the wrong things. I convinced myself I had found my place in the world. Until she entered the confessional. It was a Wednesday afternoon around 4 o'clock. Wednesday confessions are usually quiet, mostly elderly women confessing small sins. Young people admitting minor lies, routine, predictable. I heard the confessional door open and close. On the other side of the carved wooden screen, I saw a female silhouette sit down. I couldn't see her face clearly, only shadows and contours. "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned," she began. Her voice stopped me cold. It was deep for a woman, husky, loaded with something I couldn't immediately identify. Pain? Provocation? Desperation. It's been many years since my last confession. I don't even remember how many. God is always willing to listen, no matter how much time has passed, I responded in my usual pastoral tone. "What brings you today?" There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, slow and controlled. "I don't know where to start, Father. There are so many things. So many sins. Begin where you feel comfortable." Another pause. Then her voice, lower now, almost a whisper. "I've had impure thoughts, Father, about someone I shouldn't." This wasn't unusual. Most confessions included some mention of inappropriate thoughts. Thoughts aren't sin, daughter. It's what we do with them that matters. But these thoughts, they're intense, obsessive. They wake me at night. They distract me during the day. I can't stop thinking about what it would be like to be with this person. Her voice had become more intimate, more personal. I felt something stir in my stomach, an uncomfortable sensation I hadn't experienced in years. "Is it someone married? Someone committed?" I asked, maintaining my professional tone. "It's someone unattainable. Someone who has taken vows that forbid them from being with me." My heart began to beat faster. Was she talking about a priest? About me? No, that was ridiculous. I didn't even know who she was. "These vows are sacred," I said carefully. "They exist for important reasons. I know that, Father. That's why I'm here. I'm trying to resist, but it's getting harder every day." "Have you acted on these feelings?" "Not yet. But I want to. God, I want to so badly." There was raw hunger in her voice that made my mouth go dry. "What do you want me to tell you?" I asked, my voice coming out rougher than intended. "I want you to tell me it's wrong, that I should stop, that these feelings will pass. It is wrong. You should stop. And yes, with prayer and distance, these feelings will pass. And what if they don't?" "They will. You sound very certain, Father. I've counseled many people through similar struggles. Have you ever struggled with it yourself?" The question caught me completely off guard. That's not relevant. "I think it is. I think you understand exactly what I'm feeling. The wanting, the denial, the war inside yourself between what you want and what you know is right." My hands were trembling. I gripped the armrest of my chair to steady them. "This confession is about you, not me. Is it?" "Because from where I'm sitting, Father, I think maybe we're both in the confessional today." "I think you should go," I said, more firmly than I intended. "I haven't received absolution yet." She was right. I couldn't end the confession without giving her absolution. "For your penance, pray the rosary once a day for a week, and avoid situations where you might encounter this person." "That's going to be difficult, Father." "Why?" Because I see him every Sunday. Right there, at the altar. My blood ran cold. Say 3 Hail Marys and reflect on the nature of sacred vows, I said quickly. Go in peace, your sins are forgiven. Thank you, Father Antonio. She knew my name. Of course she did. It was on the church website, announced at every Mass. But hearing it from her lips, in that husky, intimate voice, felt different. Dangerous. The confessional door opened and closed. I sat there in the darkness, my heart pounding, my mind racing. Who was she? How long had she been watching me? And more troubling, why did part of me want to pull back the screen and see her face? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my small bed in the rectory, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word of that confession, the tone of her voice, the implications of what she'd said, the way she'd turned the confession into something else entirely, not seeking forgiveness, but making a declaration. I see him every Sunday. Right there, at the altar. She was a member of my congregation. Someone who sat in those pews, watched me deliver homilies, received communion from my hands, and she wanted me. I should have felt horrified, disturbed. Instead, I felt curious, and that curiosity terrified me more than anything else. At morning Mass, I found myself scanning the faces in the congregation. Was it the young woman in the 3rd row with dark, curly hair? The elegant blonde who always sat alone in the back? The professional-looking brunette who came every Sunday in designer clothes? I forced myself to focus on the liturgy, but my mind kept wandering. During communion, as each person approached, I studied their eyes, looking for recognition, for that spark of something more. But every face was the same as always, reverent, distant, respectful. Maybe she hadn't come this Sunday. Maybe she was avoiding me after the confession. Maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. Then as I was giving the final blessing, I saw her. She was standing at the back of the church, partially hidden by a stone column. When our eyes met, she didn't look away. She just smiled, a slow, knowing smile that sent electricity down my spine, and then she turned and left. I stumbled through the rest of the blessing, my hands shaking as I made the sign of the cross. By the time I could move, she was gone. But I'd seen her, mid-30s, maybe 38, tall and graceful with auburn hair that fell in waves past her shoulders. Dressed simply in dark jeans and a cream blouse, but with an elegance that suggested she was comfortable in her own skin. And those eyes, even from across the church, I could see they were striking amber color like honey held up to sunlight. She was beautiful, devastatingly so, and she wanted me. The next Wednesday, I almost called in sick to avoid confessions. But that would have been cowardly, and I'd never been a coward. I sat in the confessional, my stomach in knots, jumping at every sound. 3 elderly parishioners came and went with their usual small confessions, then silence. I was about to leave when I heard the door open. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. That voice, unmistakable. It's been 1 week since my last confession. What brings you today? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The same sin, Father, the same obsessive thoughts. If anything, they've gotten worse. Have you been praying? Keeping distance? I've been praying constantly, but the distance, that's harder. You see, I realized something this week. What's that? That this isn't just about wanting someone I can't have. It's about wanting someone who wants me back. You don't know that. Don't I? I saw how you looked at me Sunday, Father. How you stumbled over the final blessing. How your hand shook. You're mistaken. Am I? Tell me honestly, have you thought about me since our last confession? I should have lied. Should have said no and ended this before it went any further. Yes, I admitted, the word escaping before I could stop it. What did you think about? This confession is inappropriate. Then stop it. Tell me to leave. Ban me from the church if you have to. But I don't think you will. Why not? Because you're just as curious as I am. You want to know what would happen if we crossed that line. You want to know what I taste like, what I feel like, what sounds I make when... Stop. My voice came out strangled. Why? Are these thoughts impure, Father? Are they sinful? Because if they are, then we're both guilty. This needs to end. It's already begun. You know it as well as I do. The question is, how long are you going to fight it? Forever. I took vows. So did I when I got married 7 years ago. That stopped me cold. You're married? Was widowed 3 years ago? My husband Daniel died in a car accident. Left me alone in this city with no family, no close friends. Just an empty apartment and endless, crushing loneliness. Her voice had changed. The seductive tone was gone, replaced by something raw and real. I'm sorry for your loss, I said gently. Are you? Or are you relieved to know I'm available? That's not appropriate. Nothing about this is appropriate, Father, but it's honest. And I think maybe that's what we both need right now, honesty. What do you want from me? I want you to see me, really see me. Not as a parishioner, not as a temptation, but as a person. A woman who's been alone for too long, who found something in your homilies that made her feel less broken. Who started looking forward to Sundays because it meant an hour in your presence. I can't give you what you want. Can't or won't? Both. Then I'll keep coming to confession until you change your mind. That could be never. I'm patient, Father, and I have nothing but time. The confessional door opened and closed. I sat there in the darkness, my head in my hands, feeling the foundations of my carefully constructed life beginning to crack. She kept her word. Every Wednesday she came to confession. Sometimes she confessed real sins, moments of anger, small dishonest acts, lapses in faith. But always she ended by talking about me. I touched myself thinking about you last night, Father. I imagined what your hands would feel like on my skin. I wonder if you'd be gentle or rough. I fantasize about both. Each confession was a calculated assault on my defenses. And slowly, terrifyingly, they were working. I found myself preparing for Wednesdays, thinking about what she might say, wondering if this would be the week I finally broke and said something I couldn't take back. On Sundays, she was always there. Never in the front rows, always in the back or along the sides where she could watch me without being obvious. And I found myself looking for her, that flash of auburn hair, those amber eyes. One Thursday, I was visiting patients at Boston General Hospital when I saw her in the cafeteria. She was wearing scrubs navy blue, with her hair pulled back and a practical ponytail. A hospital badge hung around her neck. I couldn't make out the name from where I stood, but I could see she was a nurse. Our eyes met across the cafeteria. She didn't approach, didn't wave. Just held my gaze for a long moment before turning back to her coffee. That night, I looked up the hospital staff directory online. I told myself I was just curious, just putting a name to the face. Isabella Romano, 38 years old. Registered nurse, working in oncology. Widow of Daniel Romano, who had indeed died in a car accident 3 years ago. No children. I stared at her staff photo on the hospital website. Even in the sterile professional headshot, she was striking. Those eyes that seemed to see right through me. I closed my laptop and went to pray, but the prayers felt hollow. The breaking point came on a rainy Wednesday in November. She entered the confessional, soaked from the storm outside. I could hear water dripping from her clothes, her breathing slightly labored from running through the rain. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been 1 week since my last confession. Go ahead, I said, my voice hoarse. I'm not going to confess today, Father. I'm going to make you an offer. Isabella, you know my name. I know a lot of things I shouldn't. Like what? Like where you work. That you're a widow. That you have no family in Boston. You researched me. Yes. Good. That means you're as obsessed as I am. That's not what it means. Then what does it mean, Father Antonio? Why would a devoted priest look up information about a parishioner unless he was interested? I needed to know who was disrupting my peace. And now you know. So here's my offer. Meet me. One time, outside this church. Have coffee with me or dinner or just a walk. Let me talk to you as a person, not through this screen. And if after that you still want to maintain your distance, I'll stop. I'll find another church, another priest. I'll leave you alone. And if I say no right now, then I'll keep coming back every Wednesday, every Sunday. I'll keep whispering confessions that keep you awake at night. I'll keep looking at you across the church until you can't focus on anything else. I'll haunt you, Father. Not because I'm cruel, but because I can't stop. The rain hammered against the church roof. Thunder rumbled in the distance. One meeting, she continued. What's the harm in that? We're both adults. We both know the boundaries. But at least let me see your face when we talk. Let me sit across from you without this barrier between us. The barrier. Is there for a reason? Is it protecting you from me or from yourself? I sat in silence, my mind warring with itself. Every rational thought screamed that this was wrong, dangerous, a path toward destruction. But another part of me, the part I'd been suppressing for 9 years, wanted desperately to say yes. There's a cafe 3 blocks from here, I heard myself say. The Corner Bean. Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock. You'll be there. I'll be there. But Isabella, this is just coffee. Just conversation, nothing more. Of course, Father. Just coffee, but we both knew it was more than that. It was the first crack in the dam. And once water starts flowing through, it's almost impossible to stop. I almost didn't go. Saturday afternoon, I stood in my room at the rectory, dressed in civilian clothes, jeans and a plain black shirt, no collar. I hadn't worn regular clothes in public in years. It felt strange, exposing, like removing armor. I could still back out. Send her a text, tell her I couldn't make it, that it was inappropriate, that we needed to maintain proper boundaries. But instead, I found myself walking the 3 blocks to the Corner Bean, my heart pounding with every step. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table by the window. She'd chosen well visible enough not to seem secretive, but tucked away enough for privacy. She wasn't wearing the elegant clothes from church or the scrubs from the hospital. Just simple jeans and a soft green sweater that brought out the color in her eyes. Her auburn hair was loose, falling in natural waves around her face. When she saw me, she didn't smile triumphantly or seductively. Instead, she looked nervous, almost as nervous as I felt. You came, she said as I sat down. I said I would. People say a lot of things they don't mean. I'm not people. No, she agreed, her eyes studying my face. You're definitely not. We ordered coffee black for me, cappuccino for her, and sat in awkward silence for a moment. I'd imagined this conversation 100 times, she finally said. But now that you're here, I don't know what to say. Why me? I asked. There are hundreds of men in this city. Single men without vows, without complications. Why fixate on someone you can't have? You think I chose this? You think I woke up one day and decided to fall for a priest? Then how did it happen? She took a sip of her coffee, gathering her thoughts. It was 6 months ago. I was having a particularly hard day, the anniversary of Daniel's death. I wandered into your church because I needed somewhere quiet to sit. And you were there, preparing for evening mass. You didn't see me at first, but I watched you for a while. Watched me do what? Just exist. You were arranging flowers on the altar, and you were humming. This soft, off-key humming that was so human, so normal. And then you paused and just stood there, looking at the cross, and your whole face changed. You looked peaceful, content, like you'd found exactly where you belonged. And that made you want me? That made me envious. I wanted that peace, that certainty. And somewhere in my grief-addled brain, I connected that feeling with you. I started coming to Mass regularly. I told myself it was about faith, about healing. But really it was about you. Your homily spoke to me. The way you talked about loss, about finding meaning in suffering. It was like you understood exactly what I was going through. And slowly, without meaning to, I started falling. Not just for what you represented, but for you. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. I noticed the way you gesture when you're passionate about a point. How you sometimes lose your place in the readings because you're too caught up in the meaning. How you always make time to talk to the elderly parishioners after Mass, even when you're clearly exhausted. I saw all these little human details that made you real to me, not just a figure in robes. Those confessions, I said quietly, were they all true? Every word. I do think about you constantly. I do fantasize about what it would be like to touch you, to be with you. I do wake up in the middle of the night aching with wanting something I know I can't have. And you thought telling me would help? I thought maybe if you knew, if you felt even a fraction of what I feel, then maybe... She trailed off. Maybe what? Maybe I wouldn't have to be alone in this anymore. The honesty in her voice cut through me. This wasn't about seduction or conquest. This was about a lonely woman seeking connection with someone who made her feel less broken. I'm not the answer to your loneliness, Isabella. I know that. Logically, I know that. But feelings aren't logical, Father. Antonio. If we're doing this, if we're having this conversation, you can call me Antonio. Something shifted in her expression. Antonio, she repeated, testing the name on her lips. It sounds strange without father in front of it. Everything about this is strange. Tell me about yourself, she said suddenly. Not Father Antonio the priest, Antonio Delgado, the man. Who were you before the caller? I should have deflected, kept things professional. But something about the way she asked, genuine curiosity, not manipulation, made me want to answer. I was a mess, I admitted. Grew up in Queens, fell in with the wrong crowd in high school. Got into drugs, dropped out of college, drifted from one bad relationship to another. My father died when I was 24, and I wasn't even sober enough to say goodbye properly. What changed? I hit bottom. Woke up in a hospital after an overdose, alone, broke, with nothing and no one. A hospital chaplain visited me. We talked for hours. He didn't preach, didn't judge, just listened. And something in that conversation made me want to be better. So you became a priest? Not right away. First I got clean. Then I started volunteering at the church. Then I realized I wanted to be for others what that chaplain had been for me. It took 5 years from that hospital bed to ordination, but it was the right path. Any regrets? Every day. But not about becoming a priest. About who I was before. The people I hurt, the time I wasted, the man I could have been. You're being too hard on yourself. Maybe, or maybe I'm realistic about my capacity for self-destruction. The rules, the structure, the vows, they keep me safe from myself, or they keep you isolated. Is there a difference? She reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. It was the first time we touched skin to skin, and the contact sent electricity up my arm. Antonio, you're not that person anymore. You've built a good life, a meaningful life. But you don't have to be alone in it. I should have pulled my hand away, should have stood up and left, should have maintained the boundary. Instead, I turned my hand over and laced my fingers through hers. This can't go anywhere, Isabella. You know that? I know. But can we have this? These moments of honesty, of connection? Can I see you again, just to talk? Just to talk? Just to talk. I promise. It was a promise we both knew would be impossible to keep, but I nodded anyway. Once a week. Coffee. That's all. That's all, she agreed. But as I walked back to the rectory that evening, my hands still tingling from her touch, I knew I was lying to myself. This was just the beginning. Our Saturday coffee meetings became routine. Every week, same cafe, same time. She told me about her work in oncology, the patients she'd lost, the small victories that kept her going. About her marriage to Daniel, how they'd met in college, how his death had left a hole in her life she didn't know how to fill. About my mother, who still didn't understand my choice, who kept asking when I was going to come to my senses. All the normal things two people getting to know each other would discuss. Except we weren't normal, and we both felt the tension building beneath every conversation. The way she laughed at my jokes, her whole body leaning toward me. And I was no better. I found myself watching the way her lips moved when she spoke, noticing how the afternoon light caught in her hair, memorizing the exact shade of her eyes, the way they darkened when she was serious, lightened when she smiled. Don't apologize. I like it. Isabella, I know, boundaries. I'm just saying it's nice to be looked at like that. You are desirable. You have to know that. Knowing it and feeling it are different things. She reached across the table and took my hand. It had become a ritual, this small touch at the end of our meetings. You can ask. Honestly? Always. Sometimes, when I see couples at Mass, happy families. When someone beautiful holds my hand and looks at me like you, looking at me right now, how am I looking at you? I do, but I'll take what I can get. This has to be enough, Isabella. These meetings, this friendship. It can't go further. I know. But the following week, she suggested we take a walk instead of sitting in the cafe. It was December, cold but clear, and we walked through Boston Common with takeaway coffee cups warming our hands. At some point, she linked her arm through mine. I'm cold, she explained, but we both knew it was more than that. Another week, it started snowing while we walked. Large, soft flakes that caught in her hair, on her eyelashes. Without thinking, I reached out and brushed snow from her cheek. Our eyes met. Her face was inches from mine. All I would have to do was lean forward. I stepped back, breaking the moment. We should get inside. You're freezing. The crisis came in January, during a particularly brutal winter storm. I was working late in my office when my phone rang. I'm sorry to call. Her voice was shaking. I didn't know who else. What's wrong? There was a patient today. A woman only 40 years old. She'd been fighting breast cancer for 2 years. We thought she was getting better. She died this afternoon. I'm sorry. She looked like Daniel's sister. Same hair, same eyes. And watching her die, I can't be alone tonight. I can't go back to that empty apartment. Do you have friends you can call? I don't really have friends here. Daniel and I moved to Boston for his job, and after he died, his friends stopped calling. I have coworkers, but she took a shaky breath. I know I'm asking too much. I know this crosses lines, but please. I just need to not be alone. Every instinct screamed that this was the moment to establish firm boundaries. To offer prayers, recommend a counselor, anything but what I was about to do. Where do you live? She gave me her address, 20 minutes away. I'll be there in half an hour. I drove through the snowy streets, my mind racing with justifications. She was in crisis. This was pastoral care. I was just being a decent human being. All lies, and I knew it. Her apartment was in a modern building in Back Bay. She buzzed me up, and I took the elevator to the 6th floor, my heart pounding. She opened the door, eyes red from crying, still wearing her scrubs from work. You came. You sounded like you needed someone. I do. God, I really do. She stepped aside to let me in. The apartment was neat but impersonal, the kind of space someone occupies but doesn't really live in. There were almost no personal photos, no decorations, just furniture and emptiness. I should make tea, she said, her voice hollow. Or coffee. Do you want coffee? Isabella, just sit down. Talk to me. She collapsed onto the couch, and I sat beside her. Not too close, but close enough. Her name was Jennifer, she said. The patient. She had a daughter, 8 years old. Her little girl was there when she died, holding her hand. And all I could think was, that's going to be me someday. Alone, no one holding my hand. No daughter to say goodbye to. You don't know that, don't I? I'm 38, Antonio. The chances of me having children now, of finding someone who wants a grieving widow with baggage. It's not realistic. You're being too hard on yourself. Am I? Look at my life. Look at what I've become. I'm obsessed with a priest who can never be with me. I spend my days watching people die. I go home to an empty apartment and try to convince myself I'm fine. But I'm not fine. I'm drowning. Tears streamed down her face. Without thinking, I pulled her into my arms. She collapsed against my chest, sobbing. I held her, one hand stroking her hair, the other rubbing her back, murmuring meaningless words of comfort. It felt so natural, so right to hold her like this. To feel her warmth, to smell her shampoo, to be needed by someone in such a fundamental way. Slowly her sobs quieted. But she didn't pull away. Neither did I. I should go, I whispered. But I didn't move. Don't, please, not yet. She lifted her face from my chest. Her eyes were puffy from crying. Her nose red, mascara smudged. She looked vulnerable and real and absolutely beautiful. Antonio, she whispered, kiss me, just once. I need to know what it feels like. We can't. We're already breaking the rules. You're here in my apartment, holding me. What's one kiss? Everything. It's everything. Then make it mean something. She lifted her face to mine, her eyes pleading. And God help me, I couldn't resist anymore. I kissed her. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was desperate, hungry, 9 years of denial pouring into one moment. Her lips were soft and warm, and she tasted like salt from her tears and coffee and something uniquely her. She made a small sound in the back of her throat and pressed closer, her hands fisting in my shirt. My hands tangled in her hair, holding her to me like she might disappear if I let go. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. That, she whispered, was worth waiting for. Isabella, don't apologize, don't say it was a mistake, just stay with me tonight. Hold me. I don't need more than that. I just need to not be alone. I should have left. Should have run back to the safety of the church and my vows and my structured life. Instead, I stayed. We lay on her couch, her back against my chest, my arms around her. We didn't talk, we didn't kiss again. We just existed together in the quiet, the storm raging outside, our hearts beating in sync. And for the first time in years, I felt truly, dangerously alive.